Deputations, no petitions. So that brings us first to Peter's report. Do you want to come on up, Peter? So that's the key organisational performance results for March.
Good morning, councillors. I wish I had something new and more interesting to report, but the position is quite steady. This is, as Councillor McDonald said, the overall vital few performance measures. Just working through them in summary. Levels of service are just shy of where we would normally want to be at this time of year. We're working with heads on that. It is getting harder to pull them back as we go into the last quarter of the year. We may end up just short of where we wanted to be. News is better on capital projects. Key capital projects have had a nice jump, and we're on track for those. In fact, better than normal. Non-key are climbing, and talking to PMO, they think that light will go green for year end. I should stress, because I've heard this mentioned a few times, that measure of capital projects is actual delivery, not burn rate of money. That's further down. So that's actual delivery against the approved milestones in the capital program. Capital program planning, obviously you've got to feed the pipe. If you want to deliver it, you have to have the planning in place. The planning for 2025 has met goal of 90%. In fact, it's exceeded. We're actually looking quite good on that front. And we also believe that planning for 26 and 27 will get over the line as well. So in other words, we'll be feeding the capital program delivery machine with what it needs. I should note just in passing that ever since that set of measures has been brought in, our delivery has gone up, because focusing on one end of the pipe makes no sense. You've got to watch what's going in. In terms of finance, also good news. Operational surplus has jumped markedly. There'll be more information on how that occurred and why in the finance report. And overall capital spend, so the burn rate obviously matches the delivery rate and is quite high. So they're the overall results. I believe at this stage we will pick up non-key projects and long distance planning. We'll end up with 6 of the 7 goals will go green for year end. That's the best forecast we can deliver at this point. There's probably not a lot of point line by lining the balance of the report, because it's very steady with the last 3 or 4 that you've seen. I'm happy to field questions on the level of service exceptions. Just noting that while there are a few there, Council has such a spread of products and services that these exceptions represent the 15%, not the 85% that we're doing quite successfully. So I just want to show the positive side of that coin. Exception based can make you focused on the things that aren't working, rather than realising that the majority of them are working very well. Unfortunately, I won't be able to respond in terms of transport questions if there are any. Lynette and some key people are absent because of school holidays. I'm very happy to take note of any transport related questions and get back to you, but we can't respond immediately from the floor.
Thank you, Peter. I've got a few questions from the group. I just had a couple on the details, so again, they might be ones just to come back on.
Sure.
The first one's around the citizens' service response time, delivery response time, basically when they contact us. And it would just be good to get a bit more detail from Sarah and the team at some stage around that remedial action plan. I know they've talked a wee bit about it, but it seems to be a reoccurring theme. Okay. I'm quite keen to get some more on that. And just the only other one from me was just around on page 22, just around the building regulations, so the granting of consents. It says it's orange, but actually if you look at where we're at for the financial year versus trying to catch up, I wonder whether that should be red.
Okay, it's a fair question.
Yeah, so it'd be good to get just in time get someone to have a look at those. Okay, thank you, and thanks for your report. That's really useful, Sarah, and then Pauline.
Thank you. I've got 2 questions that may kind of sound, or 2 that sound kind of transporty, but are probably the first one at least for you. So the levels of service are for the organisation, but kind of sit within different departments.
That's right.
But the organisation as a whole needs to meet them. Is that right? It's kind of an odd thing. I'm just looking at one of the transport ones on page 23. So it's about the footpath level of service. And it says, because it's from transport, and it says we only have limited a limited ability to influence this measure as we regularly receive CSRs regarding Three Waters poor workmanship. And so I'm just wondering if that type of thing needs to sit with maybe both areas for footpath quality. For example, if it's a Three Waters are in the footpaths all the time, which they are, whether it needs to sort of go up a level to that GM space above the two, because it seems like while it sits with transport, they're saying it's a Three Waters issue. Yeah.
In order to actually make the reporting work, we do have a view that it's one person who throws the light, and it's the manager who manages that activity. However, across the board, there's an expectation that they work with others, because honestly, a lot of our outcomes rely on more than one silo.
Yeah.
So in this case, as in all the others, we'd be expecting the head of, who has the budget around that activity, to work with anyone necessary across barriers to come up with a view on what the fix looks like. But you need a single person to have that view, and it's the budget holder. I know that's a simplification, but otherwise we'll end up with potentially 3 different people throwing 3 lights, different colours.
Yeah. But we do need to find a way that actually gets the work done. It's about the work being done, not just about the reporting of the work.
Yes.
So in this particular instance, there are 2 budget lines, because there's a budget line that just deals with footpaths, but there's a budget line that deals with Three Waters work in footpaths. And so there needs to be a way to align those rather than having them siloed, and one meaning that the other one isn't meeting their levels of service. So can we come up with some sort of solution for that?
I didn't want to go into the plumbing, but very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The way these work, when council signs off anything in the LTP,
Yeah.
whether it's a budget or a level of service or a project, that finds its accountability with a senior officer.
Yeah.
That actually goes into an official system. They are allowed to prescribe tasks across barriers to anybody to help them deliver on that.
Okay.
So the expectation is that they use that to, for example, Russell in the finance team expects me to deliver non-financial performance results to the annual report.
Yeah.
So he is in charge of the annual report, but he's allowed to task me with delivering to achieve his outcome. We would expect the same from operational heads of service.
Okay.
And by and large, they do.
Yeah.
So in this instance, we would just need to check that the right coordination's occurring,
Yeah.
that we get the right result.
Cool. So if we could get an update on that at some stage, that would be really good. The next one is actually on page 24, cycle-friendly city. It talks about reviewing the business case, and this is probably one for Lynette, so we can get an update at some point. I think that reviewing that business case is a really good idea. I mean, it's always good to make sure that what we're doing is value for money in whichever space. So if we can get an update on the business case, the benefit cost ratios, all of that kind of stuff, that would be really useful.
Did you
Even
have?
if they just throw in a memo or something like that, the work that's being done.
Yeah, I was
It
going to
sounds
say.
like it's being done already.
Can I ask Lynette to come back on not just doing the work, but the timing of it? Because I am conscious that she's fielding a hell of a lot under the LTP process around submissions.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it just helps inform the LTP as well.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
No. Oh, all good. Okay, thank you, Sarah. Pauline.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I was going to ask about that one too. On page 22, I think it is, reg and compliance and licensing. The food, health and safety of the food premises, and we're only achieving 50% inspections, and it's kind of like implies that there's not enough staff. So can we just get a response to that, please? Because I think that's a pretty important thing that we do.
Okay.
And then also on page 25, it looks like sort of good news there that it says that we have actually achieved our footpath goals, that 92%, our goal is 82%, that footpaths rated 1, 2 or 3, and we've achieved 92.72%. So that is a good news story. I'm reading that correctly, aren't I, Peter? I've read it 3 times. Sorry, that's on page 25.
Yeah, top of page.
your numbering is different to mine. Have you got a name or a number for the level of service, please?
16.08, if that helps.
Yeah.
It's a copy of the agenda.
Maintain the
next to
condition of the
Peter.
footpaths.
Yeah.
Peter,
Maintain
there's a
roadway
copy of the
condition.
agenda you can use next to you.
Okay. Look, I'm sorry. It's just that I'm working to different documents than you've got.
Yeah, I mean it's something you can take. I mean it's a Linnet question, so
16.0.8, maintain
Okay.
the condition of
All right.
footpaths.
I'll come back to you with the backstory to that and whether there's anything that isn't obvious in that result.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good news story, I think, because our goal is to 82% and we've achieved 92.72.
cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Sarah.
Yeah. So the workshop that we asked for on water infrastructure at the last meeting, do we know when that's happening? Just it might be a Brent question.
I don't.
Because that was going to inform the LTP as well.
Potentially, it's a bit unfair to off the hip, but maybe Brent can answer that.
Brent, just in terms of the workshop on the water infrastructure, I think Councillor Templeton requested last time, was it?
Yes, I just caught up with Michelle this morning. So Michelle's been busy with treatment plant and a previous question on wastewater capacity and that sort of stuff. We'll have that back to you before or in time for deliberations on the LTP, but she's working on it now.
Great. And the last one is, with some of these, like that, for the example, the footpath one, it's hard to know if that's been a change over time, and it'd be useful with the exceptions to see if this is a standard thing that's accepted until, you know, the end of the year, if there's a pattern, if it's declining and things over time, because it just sort of says what it is currently. And so whether there's a way to include in the reporting how it's the trend, if you like.
The trend will be in the activity plan, so we can pull that out as a graph and just show you the behaviour over time.
I'm just thinking for each of these as opposed to the overall trend for levels of service meeting. Does that make sense? Just in the exceptions reporting.
I think we just need to come back to you with a view
Whether
of
it's useful,
how
I don't-
complex that will make the reporting, though,
Yeah.
because it will at least double in size. These exceptions if we add the graphs for each one.
It wouldn't necessarily need to be a graph, even just a short statement saying this is, you know, consistent, or,
I see.
you know,
Okay.
those kind of like, is it declining? Is it increasing?
I think that's
seeing
good
improvements?
feedback. Do you want to
Yeah,
just
yeah.
take it away and have a look, Peter?
Yep, sure.
Cool, thank you, Sarah. Yanni.
Thank you. Just to be clear, most of these are annual surveys. So although from like month to month, we pretty much get the same data.
No, I wouldn't say most of them are surveys. Maybe 20% of levels of service are survey based. There's a lot of things in there that are simply to do with measurements of consents approved and so forth.
Right. Okay. So probably maybe a third or half, or I mean, there's a lot. Like, so if I look at if I look, for example, on page 23, the strategy, planning and policy, public information and participation, percentage of residents who feel they can participate in and contribute to council decision making.
Yes.
30% target. Previous year result 29%. Actual this year is 28%. Now that's only measured once a year, right, through the survey.
That's correct.
Right, and it says we've not met this target. We continue to review our processes to look for opportunities for improvement. It doesn't really say anything at all. And to give you an example,
So I don't want to get too down a rabbit
no,
hole.
so my question
No,
is-
just wait
Yeah.
for a second. So some of the others where we've had similar questions, we've just flagged them with Peter.
Yeah.
Like, so customer services, which I think you've raised in the past, and we'll get something back on that. So if what you're asking is, can we get something back on it? The team can certainly do that. Yeah.
What I'm trying to understand at a high level, like that one in terms of how residents feel that they can participate, if you align that to the other two that are to do with the regional parks and the community parks where we see, and sports groups. So if you just go up and look at, for example, on page 21, you see regional sports organisations satisfaction is at 50%. We've got a target of 75%. And then it says review actuals to inform areas for improvement. Then you go down to the next one, which is the city community parks. But what I don't quite understand is how does engaging people fit in with trying to address the areas of concern? And to give you a very tangible example, we've got a sports network plan that the staff are saying we shouldn't go out for public consultation and engagement on, and it's being delayed and delayed and delayed. Yet it would seem to me an obvious one where you could actually engage people in decision making, given that we've got such a low score and given that we've got such high areas of dissatisfaction. So I'm just trying to understand across the organisation who actually looks at and says, actually, the community are not being engaged in what we're doing, do not feel that they can participate. Let's start putting some strategies in place that we can do that. And obviously consulting on key documents or key strategies that we're doing would be a classic example of something that could be done. So how do we get that
Yep. Okay.
considered?
Good
That's the
question. Peter, is that something you want to address?
What I'm hearing overall is a bit of a pattern that there's a request for a little bit of analysis against trends, a little bit more effective detail in terms of what the remedial actions actually are. Now, in the case of resident surveys, because it's a satisfaction view of the world, not a simple mechanical one, that can be a little bit nuanced and the answers will get bigger. But what I'm hearing is there's an appetite for a little bit more detail, a little bit more specificity on the remedial actions, a bit more trend line data. So we'll respond. I'm just flagging these will get a little bit longer when we do that.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is, given that we've got 28% is the statistic we've got around people feeling like they're involved, participating and contributing to our decision making, and yet our processes are seemingly speeding things up and having less interaction with the community and certainly on some things. How do we get the organisation to think about what are the opportunities to actually engage more?
Well, I think it comes back to, I don't disagree with you, but it comes back to that point I made around what we're asked for around customer service increases and whether we can just get some advice back from the relevant team that can then form some actions if we require it at our end. But noting predominantly that'll sit with the chief executive. So, yep. Okay. Any other questions on this? No. Melanie looks like she's happy to move it. Celeste looks like she's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thanks, everyone.
Great. Russell.